All right, the funeral of the late pupil at Parktown Boys School, Enock Mpianzi, has been used as a platform to highlight the state of the education sector in the country. Now, speaking at Mpianzi's funeral, EFF spokesperson Mbuyiseni Ndlozi lambasted the state of neglect of South African schools. The Gauteng government also said it would reassess policies relating to extramural activities at schools. Well, this to help ensure learners are kept safe. Enock Mpianzi died while at a grade 8 orientation camp last month. Mpianzi from Parktown Boys High School in Johannesburg drowned at the Nyathi Bush and Riverbreak Lodge in the North West. The 13-year-old disappeared when a makeshift raft that he and other boys had made overturned in the Crocodile River. His funeral service was held at the Kensington Secondary School here in Johannesburg.
A final farewell to Enock Mpianzi, a child whose death made a country cry. It was a wanton death. Enock's body retrieved from the river 2 days later. Today, the tears flowed freely.
Enock was a remarkable child. Even in death, he left a mark. He had so many dreams and so many plans for the future, but God decided otherwise. Enock, my son, I love you with all my heart. I'm profoundly proud to have been your father.
To us, sending someone like Enock to school was not a wild card that we were playing with his life. Neither was it a game that we were playing with his life. For him to be later packed and shown back to us as a body that had no more life in it.
Mpianzi's family also read the last letter Mpianzi wrote to God at the end of 2019. The letter is part of the church's tradition to ask God the things congregants hope will manifest in their lives.
Things I don't want to happen. I don't want to get shot. I don't want to be stabbed. I don't want to be robbed. I don't want to get killed. I don't want to be defeated by peer pressure, such as killing, stealing, smoking, and drinking. What I want for God to do for me. I would like for God to help me pay for my school fees, to help me in both my academics and sports, to help me make good friends, not next year, to help me pass grade 8 to grade 12, to help me become good at subjects that I'm struggling with. I want for God to give my mother a job, for God to give us a safe place to live in Joburg.
The EFF highlighted various struggles faced by learners and the education system.
Many kids wake up every day to cross dangerous rivers just to go and ask for education. In this country, many kids still go to schools where there are pit toilets, and they daily face the danger of dying in those toilets because we live under general conditions of neglect. Many children go every day to schools where there are drugs. They are sent to teachers who abuse them, who expect sex in exchange for marks. We send them to school, these young girls, and they come back pregnant. But in proper schools, these things don't happen. In proper schools, in suburban areas of the country, there is better care. So how did Enock, in a school declared to be better, have to be a casualty in a river?
Enock's death has opened a Pandora's box. A litany of questions remained unanswered, like why police were notified a day later. Why was there no immediate search of the river? Why were some pupils who raised the alarm ignored? Was there a cover-up? Education officials say it will ensure the family are given answers.
It is regrettable that Enock lost his life while in the care of our system. that should have protected him. We want to again reiterate that the Department of Education will ensure that the family of Enock is given a full report of the findings of the investigations once they are done.
Mpianzi was laid to rest at West Park Cemetery. Mahlako Komani, SABC News, Johannesburg.
And Mahlako Komani joins us in studio this evening. A very good evening to you, Mahlako. Thanks indeed for your time. Quite an emotional send-off for Enock Mpianzi.
Yes, definitely, Criselda. It was very, very emotional for the family. I mean, you can imagine, we heard from the family saying that they treated him like the egg. He was the last born of 4 boys. The brother also saying we were really willing to go without for this child to attend the school, what they were hoping that he will become a better person in society. I suppose their dreams and aspirations also as a family, as a lineage, also resting on this, on the shoulders of young Enock. You hear the letter that he writes to God at the end of their fast last year. The things that he says, you can see that this was a child with a level head, with a certain responsibility that he knew he carried. A child concerned about his family, a child saying, God, may I not succumb to peer pressure, may I not succumb to drugs, killings, I don't want to be stabbed, I don't want to be killed. Lo and behold, less than 3 weeks later, this is a young man that is pulled out of a river under the most tragic of circumstances that we are hoping we will actually find out what happened to Enock Mpianzi and Brits.
On the sidelines of all of that, Mahlako, what was bound to come up is, highlighting the disparities in South Africa's education system. Talk to us about what some of the speakers said there. Quite poignant, some of them highlighting that, while we fight for a better education for the children, there still seems to be those disparities that are quite clear in society.
Yes, very glaring disparities, as you quite correctly say. The EFF was there. We did see that they had also visited the family, I think it was last week, with their CIC offering that legal assistance. But today, I think in the eulogy that they delivered, saying that in South Africa, you find a country that is able in 6 years to build world-class stadiums, but when it comes to basic issues of human rights, issues that you find entrenched and protected in our constitution, children find themselves having to go to schools where at certain times they really are endangering their lives. Took that opportunity to, say government really probably wasn't doing enough to ensure that South Africans are all equal. But also, I think, juxtaposing that with that even at the good schools, how do we find a young man where we're expecting more care, where we're expecting things that are not common in other schools to happen there? What actually happened there at Parktown Boys?
You would have thought. But again, Stephanie, Mahlako, let's just get an update again. Is there any further news apart from what we do know? The suspension of the principal, the suspension of some of the district officials. Has there been any other movement in terms of the investigation?
Well, in terms of the investigation, the department hasn't really told us anything. But you'll remember that Emisili Sufi had said, as and when they get the information, that will be made public. They will share that. He was also under instructions from the parents of Parktown Boys to say, you also have an obligation to share with these boys. Obviously, they are at the front line of what happened here. They would obviously be also quite impacted by this. We know as a country, this sent the country into an outrage as to what happened there. But I spoke to the uncle, the grandfather, we remember that EFF had given the services of the lawyers to the family. So I had said, have you perhaps managed to speak to the lawyers? Have you begun giving them instructions, because they were free to do so as they chose to do so, and whatever instructions they wanted to give the lawyers. The grandfather saying, yes, they have met with lawyers, but because there was the funeral, really, that I think they just wanted to lay the young man to rest and tackle the next hurdle that they felt as a family was the direction that they wanted to take, saying that they've met, but they will be meeting with lawyers after everything has really, I suppose, settled down. But there was really also nothing necessarily forthcoming, as you could see that government there was represented by Community Safety MEC, Ms. Mazibuko. So we didn't really hear much from the department itself as to what is the latest in terms of what is going on there. But we were expecting to see perhaps suspension of educators. Remember, Msili Sufi had said
Correct.
that educators, they are the SGB educators,
right,
and they are those educators that are employed by the GDE. They were looking at that. From then on, we haven't
also
heard.
on that trip with
Yes.
the late Enock Mpianzi.
Yes, they were definitely on that trip. Obviously, the stories that came out, that also thoroughly needs to be investigated as to how does one young man flow with the river and nobody sees what has happened there. And obviously the various stories that had come out to say there were accusations that there was no adult supervision at...
where were the teachers?
Where were the teachers? So we're definitely, I think, waiting with bated breath there to find out what is the accountability of teachers. You'd understand and remember that the Law School Becker Wekiamohetsu Siboko had drowned. That principal was suspended. The principal of Letitia Youngson there as well was also given suspension.
Yeah.
So we're really expecting some sort of action as well from Msili Sufi and his officials to see what's the way forward here. And I think quite an interesting few months ahead for us to, because he did say there was a 3-month period generally that their reports take out.
Correct.
Waiting with bated breath to understand what happened to young Enock Mpianzi.
Well, let's hope that report will be released in the next 3 months. Thank you very much, Mahlako Komane, covering the funeral of Parktown Boys High learner Enock Mpianzi.